you for joining us again. Today's subject is, I'm going to name it Through the Ages, but mainly 50s and 60s. So with Through the Ages, when you between 0 and 10, you learn more in the first 5 years of your life than you do, later on. In that time, you learn how to crawl and walk, you learn how to run, you learn how to say no and yes and please and all of these things. Then you end up, going to kindy and pre-primary and school, and you start making your friends. And then you start to know a little bit more about you and what you like. Between 11 and 20, this is where we do our physical growing, more so than our mental. We learn obviously, yes, but our physical growing is where we change. We start to grow taller or wider or thicker or thinner. We start developing with our hormones. We grow breasts, we grow hair, males grow their genitalia. Everything gets a little bigger, or some. So these are the areas of where we grow physically. We go through the puberty of where we learn as to what happens to our body and all the different changes that happens to it. But not only that, is that with the hormones comes the, I've just forgotten the name of it, don't you just love that? Is our pimples. It's when the acne or the pimples start to happen. And that is really horrible. We hate it because this is the time of where we want to be good looking. We want to look very attractive for the men, and the men want to look handsome for the women. In this time, between 11 and 20, and let's say probably more so between, say, 16 and 20, is where a lot of people will actually find the love of their life. They will actually end up together. It's amazing how, especially in the earlier generations where they did. I met my late husband. It was my college sweetheart. I met him when I was 16. It was amazing. He was lovely. First of all, he didn't even know I existed, so I thought. But when I was 17, that's when he let me know that he'd been watching me for a long time and I had no idea. So this is the time of where you start to be attractive. You're aware of what you are. You're aware of what you like when it comes to the opposite sex or the same sex. Do you like them tall or short? Do you like them wider or thinner? Do you like them with hair, no hair? Mow, a beard? This is where we start to like what we like. Also, we start to understand personalities. So let's go from 21 to 30. 21 and 30 is where you start to really find your career. Some will bounce around from career to career, and some will actually be a professional student where they're constantly at uni or doing courses and can't really find exactly what they want to do. This is our growing years I call growing years. This is where we grow mentally. We start to come into our own a little bit because we start to sort of have more of a voice. Because in our teens, we tend to be a little timid and a little scared to say what we think. So in these, in the late 20s to 30s, this is where we start to really know what we want. We start to speak out. Some speak out more than others. And others are still a little timid, but they're very sure of what they want. So most have well and truly fallen into a career by now. And I think it's around about 60% would actually now be married or with their life partner and possibly starting a family. So let's have a look at from 31 to 40. So this age is where a lot will actually work out whether they're going to be staying with their partners or not. There is a lot will actually find their partners and they will start their life in this time. This is where they will also decide whether they actually want children or not, because now that the clock is ticking, especially if you're a female. So this is the area of where you either change careers or you realise that what you were doing just isn't for you and you just put up with it. That you're actually old enough now and more mature now to say, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to go back to uni. I'm going to pursue what I wanted to do in my 20s. So this is often an area where you start to really come into your own again, but in a more mature way. It's really interesting when you see those that are in their 30s to those that are in their the 20s to their 30s. Makes a big difference. So let's have a look at let's now look at from in the 40s, from your 40s to your 50s. This is an area of where it's actually truly amazing as to how many people will actually decide whether they are going to stay with their life partners or not. This is an area of where you change careers again, but it'll be for more strategic areas. It won't be for the fact that you do or don't like your job. It'll often be which is going to be the best for me, because we're now looking closer to retirement. Which job is going to put more dollars in the bank? Which one has, the best that we need? What do we need in our life now? Because we don't start looking at what makes us happy, which we do, but not as far as the money side of it as you do earlier. This is the area of where you need to start planning for your retirement. We look at what is the best for us. What am I going to put away? What is going to help me? But it's also an area of where we realise that money isn't everything. Life, family, friends, because this is often an age group where you start losing more friends. For whatever reason, it might be a heart attack, an aneurysm. I know a number of people that have died in their 40s. It's so sad. But however, this is where we start to look at us as our mortality, seeing things through a different light. Some of us will actually start becoming grandparents. I became a grandmother at 48. It was wonderful. At first I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm too young to be a granny. But once this beautiful grandchild came along, oh my goodness, boy was I ready. And so are most other people. There are a lot of people that will often move overseas, or their children are grown and they're going, I've done my bit, so I'm now going to do what I want to do. So with me in my 40s was different. I lost my husband. He died of leukemia and I started again. I had to sell everything, rebuilt a house and started over. I even ended up starting a new job. I did end up meeting another man. And then, we end up purchasing a property together. So there is a lot that happens in the 40s. So let's go to the 50s, 51 to 60. Well, this is a very interesting age. In my 50s, I remarried. I had 6 grandchildren at the time, or 5 grandchildren and 1 on the way. My husband and I, or partner at the time, we bought a property together. I started my own business, which is brain thinking. I took on a new job, left my corporate world and started as a manager for a small business. The owner of this small business has become one of my very good friends, confidant, business bounce back person that I can talk to about anything. And she gets me, so gets me. It's amazing. So in the 50s, I stopped menopause. which was wonderful because all of a sudden I felt cold for the first time in many, many years. I had a number of things happen. We had a dog attack, and this is where in your 50s, a lot of things happen. You become grandparents. You realise that you're never going to be the same shape that you were years to come. This is when the years of acceptance, that we start to accept that we are who we are. It's also the age of where we start to lose the filter, some more quickly than others, of where they just say it as it is. I've become like that. I have a filter, and sometimes the filter just totally drops. But it also depends where I am. My super close friends, as you would have heard in the Friends, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about what I say or what I don't say. And that's so comforting. So let's move to the 60s. I turned 60 last year, and I've realised I'm a confident, independent, great woman. And I'm allowed to say that about myself. Do others think that? I have no idea. I've also learnt that what other people think is entirely up to them, and it's none of my business. I've realised that I'm a true leader in my own right. I realise that I really like what I like, and what I don't like I get rid of. And if that includes friends, that's what happens. I've realised that life is getting closer to the end. Not saying that I'm going to pass away in the next few weeks or months or years. It's just that from 30 to 60 happened really quickly. And seeing my mum now at 82, I realised how super quick that happened. So I know that it's going to get there. And I'm going to take every single amount and ounce of enjoyment out of this life as I can. I've realised that there is a number of things I want to do that I haven't completed. There are a number of things that I want to challenge myself with. And there is a number of other things that I'm not going to tell you that I want to achieve. They're my silent achievements that I want to, and one day I will. Because it's almost if you say it out loud, it won't happen. But we all know that when you say it out loud, it will. But these are personal things for me. Do you know, in my 60s, as I've only just reached 60, I know that there is a lot of growing to do. Still, I know that I haven't learned everything, and I need to learn more. I know that there are a number of areas that I want to go into. I also know that my life has become very busy. I know in my 30s, when the kids all left home, or my 40s when the kids all left home, I thought, life's going to be easier. Well, I've realised I'm busier now than I ever was when they were at home. Because you don't run around just for yourself or your partner, but you run around for your parents. You run around for your kids and your grandkids. And so our generation is now called the sandwich generation, if you have parents, children and grandchildren on either side. So I'm looking forward to the rest of my 60s. I'm looking forward to ticking off the challenges that we have done. I'm looking forward to pursuing a few more dreams. In the 60s is where a number of people will decide to slow down from work or even retire. But instead of retiring from work, they'll actually pick up something else, that they might do a lot more volunteer work, or they will go and help out somewhere else. Or what I have noticed, that a number of people who have retired from corporate work will actually start up a little home business, and that keeps them going just a few hours a week, puts a little bit of dollars in their pocket, and they end up going to markets. So let's look at the 70s. I can't talk about the 70s from my experience because I haven't reached it. However, I do know that most people will retire in their 70s. That's where most people will retire in the 60s or 70s, but a lot of men more in the 70s. This is where they'll slow down to maybe just 1 day a week, 2 days a week. Might only a matter of hours. But most will actually retire. And this is where they have to make a whole lot of planning. Are they going to travel? Are they going to stay and be babysitters for the grandchildren all the time? Are they going to sit back and just do nothing? Are they going to have a holiday? What are they going to do with this last bit of time that they have? Because they realise that the 90s is coming really quickly. So in this look at through the ages, what part of the ages was your best time? What part of the ages are you looking forward to? What part of the ages did you complete most of your tasks or your goals? I know I've set some goals for my 60s and into my 70s of what I'd like to be doing. I haven't even looked at the 80s or 90s yet, but I have a whole new appreciation of those who are having to put their parents in a home, as we had to this year or last year, and that was really hard. Now I'm looking at when I get there, what do I want my children to do for me? I've had to go through mum's things with my sisters. What do I want my children going through all of mine? So these are things that you're going to have to look at probably in your late 70s and your 80s. And if you get to 90s, great, and most are. So in the ages, I can't talk about any more with the others except for just what I know from the people that I see, is that life is what you make it. Whatever decade you're in, make the most of it. Whatever you are doing in your career at the time, make the most of that, because even your worst days could end up being your best days. And remember, if you're having a bad day, there's a new day tomorrow, and a new day after that, and a new day after that. And how you choose to spend your ages, your decades, your work, your time, your life, your family, however you spend it is entirely up to you. And don't let anyone tell you what you have to or should do. These are your choices, your career. You can guide and advise, but don't be surprised if people don't take your advice, because we're all different. I have a saying that I always tell my clients and my children right from a young age, is that I'm going to give you some advice. What you do with that advice is entirely up to you. So I want you to go into your ages, whether you're young in your 20s and you're listening to this, or whether in your 60s or 70s and you're listening to this. What are you going to do for the rest of your years? What are you going to do with all your years you have ahead? Plan, enjoy, have fun, and love life. I'm Kerry Hort Rowe, and my business is great.